Why is India still grappling with poverty despite its economic growth? This is a question that baffles many. Indeed, India's economic growth has been nothing short of impressive, often touted as one of the fastest-growing economies globally. Yet, paradoxically, this growth hasn't translated into jobs, especially for the youth. Unemployment rates remain high, painting a stark contrast to the country's economic strides. This is due to a mismatch between economic growth and job creation. In essence, while the economy expands, it isn't generating enough jobs to keep pace. The result? A significant portion of the population remains unemployed or underemployed. This job scarcity is particularly acute among the youth, who make up a large part of the population. As a result, they are unable to contribute to the economy effectively, leading to a waste of human capital. Thus, despite impressive economic growth, India struggles with high unemployment rates, which exacerbates poverty. Another key reason for poverty in India is low labor productivity and a significant skills gap. You see, India's labor productivity is a notch lower when compared to other emerging economies, such as China. This discrepancy is not due to a lack of effort or ambition, but rather a systemic issue rooted in the education system. The education system in India often fails to adequately prepare its students for the workforce, leaving a significant skills gap in its wake. This gap is especially apparent in high-skilled professions where India's workforce falls short compared to its international counterparts. This lack of skilled labor hampers productivity and, in turn, restricts economic growth. It's a vicious cycle, really. A poorly prepared workforce leads to low productivity, which then restricts economic growth and, in turn, perpetuates poverty. Low labor productivity and a significant skills gap hinder India's economic growth, perpetuating poverty. India's low female labor force participation rate is another contributing factor to its poverty. It's a startling fact that the participation of women in the workforce in India is significantly lower compared to other countries with similar income levels. This underutilization of the female labor force is not simply a matter of equality. It represents a missed economic opportunity. When half of a country's potential workforce is not fully engaged, it's like trying to run a race with one leg. The economy can't reach its full potential. Women bring unique perspectives and skills, and their input can drive innovation and growth. However, societal norms, lack of access to education, and other barriers prevent many women from participating in India's workforce. Addressing these barriers and encouraging more women to join the workforce could potentially spark a new wave of economic growth. The gender disparities in labor force participation contribute to India's persistent poverty. Inadequate investment in education and healthcare also contributes to poverty in India. This is a story we've heard time and again, but it's worth repeating because it's a fundamental issue that needs addressing. India, despite its emerging economy status, allocates a disproportionately low amount of its budget to education and healthcare compared to other developing nations. This lack of investment hampers human capital development. Imagine a scenario where a child doesn't receive a quality education due to lack of resources or infrastructure. That child grows up with limited skills, unable to compete in a global job market. Similarly, consider a population with limited access to healthcare. This results in a workforce that's often sick or unable to work to its full capacity. This undermines economic progress. Without a healthy, educated population, the nation can't fully tap into its potential. Thus, the cycle continues, with poverty perpetuating through generations. Poor access to quality education and healthcare hinders economic advancement and perpetuates poverty. India faces a significant infrastructure deficiencies and regulatory barriers which impede economic growth. Let's delve into this a bit more. The country grapples with inadequate roads, inconsistent power supply, and insufficient public services. These challenges not only hamper daily life but also discourage economic growth and investment. Now, imagine trying to operate a factory when you can't rely on the electricity to stay on. Tough, right? Furthermore, India's complex regulatory framework adds another layer of difficulty. Foreign investors often find themselves tangled in red tape, facing a labyrinth of bureaucratic hurdles. This complexity deters investment and slows the development of industries, from manufacturing to technology and beyond. It's a bit like trying to navigate a maze while blindfolded. Sure, you might eventually find your way out, but the journey is so frustrating that many simply choose not to enter in the first place. These challenges hinder economic growth and perpetuate poverty in India. India has experienced a decline in fixed capital formation and foreign direct investment, limiting investment opportunities and economic expansion. Fixed capital formation, the process of adding to capital stock, is crucial for an economy's growth. However, India has seen a downtrend in this area, restricting the country's economic potential. Similarly, the influx of foreign direct investment, a critical driver of economic growth and development, has also seen a downward spiral. Foreign investors bring in not just capital but also a wealth of knowledge, skills, and technologies, all of which can greatly enhance the productivity of the host economy. But why this decline? A few factors come into play. Policy uncertainties, for one, can make investors apprehensive about putting their money into the country. Additionally, financing issues and a slowdown in the banking sector further dampen the investment climate. This decline in investment perpetuates poverty and hinders economic growth. Without sufficient investment, job creation stagnates and income levels remain low, trapping many in the cycle of poverty. India's increasing fiscal deficit and pressures to maintain government revenue also contribute to its poverty. Let's dive a bit deeper into this. A fiscal deficit occurs when a government's expenditures surpass its revenue. This deficit has been on the rise in India, prompting concerns about the sustainability of government spending programs. When a country's fiscal deficit increases, it can impact its credit rating and borrowing costs, making it more expensive for the country to finance its debt. Now, let's talk about the pressures to maintain government revenue. These pressures can limit the government's ability to invest in poverty alleviation programs and infrastructure development. Why? Because when a government is focused on balancing its budget, it may cut spending in areas that are crucial for poverty reduction and economic growth. In essence, a high fiscal deficit and revenue pressures can create a vicious cycle of poverty and underdevelopment. These fiscal challenges constrain India's efforts to alleviate poverty and develop infrastructure. Finally, India's persistent trade deficit and widening current account deficit pose challenges to economic stability and growth. Let's delve into this a little more. A trade deficit occurs when a country's imports exceed its exports. It's like spending more money than you earn. For India, this means they are buying more goods and services from foreign countries than they are selling. This trade imbalance can lead to a host of issues, including putting pressure on the local currency and potentially leading to inflation. Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the current account deficit. The current account includes not only the trade balance, but also net income, such as interest and dividends, and transfers, like foreign aid. A deficit here means the country is spending more money on foreign trade than it is earning. India's current account deficit has been widening over the years. This can be a cause for concern as it may indicate an over-reliance on foreign capital to finance this deficit. This, in turn, can lead to a higher level of external debt, making the country more vulnerable to global economic shocks. Now, why does this matter to poverty and economic development? Well, these imbalances mean that more money is flowing out of the country than coming in, which can limit the funds available for domestic investment and development. This can slow down economic growth, affecting job creation and income levels, thereby exacerbating poverty. Furthermore, a dependence on imports, coupled with slowing global demand, can impact India's export earnings. If the world economy slows down and countries buy less of India's goods, this can further widen the trade and current account deficits. These trade imbalances exacerbate poverty and hinder efforts to achieve balanced economic development. It's a complex issue with no easy solutions, but addressing it is vital for India's long-term economic stability and prosperity.